Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you're well, and I hope you can hear me okay. Can I just have a thumbs up that you can hear me? Brilliant. So we'll get started. It's just gone 6 minutes past, um, 6 minutes past six. So I don't want to waste any time at the beginning because we really want to hear to Ashar's presentation. So most of you know me, so I won't go into a lot of detail there. I've been in property for many years, and we do all sorts of things in property. So you've seen our presentation. So as I said, I want to get started with Ashard. Ashard has done a presentation for us, which I believe I have seen before. Um, he's been in property quite a time, not full time, and he's got a fantastic career, and then also does property um, business alongside his full time family, as well as uh, having a corporate life as well, which is fantastic. So, Ashar, thank you for joining us this morning, this afternoon. I'm back in the morning mode. So, this evening, thank you for joining us. And uh, if you could just leave questions in the chat, and if you've got any questions, we'll do them after the 40-minute presentation. So yeah, and then please don't communicate on the chat or promote anything because it will be just deleted because we just want to focus on the presentation this evening that you've come to join us. So Ashad, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I'll pass over to you, and Dan will give you any help that you need with the tech side with getting your presentation up, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Sunil. Sounds like you might need that coffee to get you going still in the morning. Good evening, everyone. And before we kick off, I just want to explain a couple of things because what you're about to hear tonight is something you've probably never heard in another networking event. And I know Sunil was kind of saying that, oh, he believes he may have seen it. But the thing is, this presentation, or what I'm going to share with you today, and what we're going to talk about tonight, you won't have heard anything like this before. And there's a good chance you won't see anything like this before. So with that in mind, let me bring up the slides. And Dan, could you just confirm if you can see?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now, I know a lot of you have been to other networking events, and there'll be a lot of preconceptions. So what I'd like to do tonight is spend a little bit of time breaking down them, or actually really explaining what I want to say. Because one of the things I never like is assumptions. Because as you know, if you break it down, it makes it an ass of you and me. So I'd much rather prefer if we go along this presentation together. So if you do have some preconceptions already, I'd appreciate it just for the next half an hour, 45 minutes, if you just put them to one side. And if you've got your phone there as well, if you could put that to one side as well. But if you really do have to be on your phone, then, this presentation won't work for you. And I'm looking for you to engage with what I'm saying so that you can get the most from it and actually the reason for you being here. So why I want business partners. Now, a bit about me. So we haven't actually been in property for very long. It's only been around 6 years. But we have been relatively successful. We've delivered 17 successful projects so far and are well underway with Project 18 as we move into the commercial to commercial development sector. Now, as Sunil mentioned, alongside property, I work in the financial sector as an actuary for the likes of blue chip companies such as Scottish Widows and Aviva, where I earn substantial six-figure payments, helping manage their investment portfolios. Now, before I go ahead, I want you to have a picture of a boardroom table. And on one side is where I sit, and there's people on my side, and on the other, there's people sitting across. So the reason why I want you to imagine the table is, as I explain the next couple of concepts, it'll help you understand how I see them from a business perspective and how a business will view what we're going to talk about next. So these are terms you've probably heard before: investor, JV partner, and business partner. And you'll have a very good understanding of what they all are. But as I said, just for the next half an hour, 45 minutes, what I'd like to do is give you the definitions of how I see them from a business perspective. So we'll begin with the one that you're most familiar with, which is an investor. Now, for a lot of people, that means a lot of things. But from a business perspective, what it means is capital. And that capital is coming into the business, and it'll have terms attached to it. And some of those terms will be the interest rate, the level of security. So in my eyes, if we go back to the table analogy, I'm sitting on this side of the table in the business, and across from me will be sitting the investor. That doesn't mean they're against me. It just means they're on the other side. And what I mean by that is they have their own motivations, and they have what they're looking for generally, which is, here's some money. I want an interest or a payment on it with some form of security or no security. So for me, I know in the training courses, people talk about using investors to buy property and then switching it out to a bank, or using a bridger to buy property and then switching it out to a mortgage. But from a business perspective, all the investor, the bank, and the bridger are all interchangeable because they provide the same function, which is money at a rate for various levels of security. So just going back to the investor, in the table, they're sitting across from me. With the JV partner, typically they can also be bringing funding along. So they're sitting beside me at the table, but they'll be coming along for one deal or one project. So they share the risk and also get a share of the reward. But they're typically for one deal or one project. And once that's done, off they go, disappear, and then there's an empty chair beside me. The third thing is the business partner. Now, the business partner sits beside me. So they too are bringing capital into the business. But the difference is they're going to be in that chair beside me for the duration of the business. They're also taking risks in the business, They're also getting the reward from the business, and they also have control in the business. They get to decide the direction and the decision and what the business will do, which projects it will do, which projects it won't do. So when you bring that all together, there is a distinction between all three. Whereas a lot of the times, especially in in property events, networking events, when people are talking about investor or a JV partner, they typically just mean money. Money for the deal, money for the project. But what I'm looking for is a business partner. That's someone that sits beside me, someone that is happy to share in the risk, but will also benefit from the reward. And there's someone that's in it for the long run, not just one project. So you might be asking, well, why now? Why am I looking for a business partner? So as I said in my introduction, for the past 6 years, we've delivered 17 successful projects, ranging in complexity. And the last project that we did created a profit of 150,000. And the types of projects that we're doing now, we've got one underway where there's a profit of circa 400,000, which is a commercial to commercial development. And whilst all that's going on, I've also got a very lucrative actuarial contract, which I'm committed to. So you can see the sheer fact that I'm committed to a lucrative contract as an actuary, which I'm dedicated to, it also is at a crucial time for the property business and where it's going and where I want to take it. So really there's two opportunities here, and it would be foolish of me to walk away from one for the other at the moment. So how did we get here? When I started off, going back 6 years ago, I didn't really think about starting a business. It was one property deal. That's what I thought I was doing. And I was trying to see if I could do it. You'll remember your first one. And in time, there was a lot of bumps and scrapes along the way, but I managed to get it over the line. I thought, right, this is something that I can do. So I got the confidence in it. So this is whilst I was working as an actuary. And then came another and another. And each time, there was times where I was doing 3 or 4 at the same time with my job. But the size and level of those projects meant that I could do both things in tandem. But as you've seen from the previous slide, the level that we're going to now and are now, that doesn't work. I can't build a full-time successful property business by giving it part-time attention. Because that's not treating it with respect. It's not going to get where it needs to get to. And all that's going to happen is I'm going to be trying to borrow and steal time from both sides, and that's just not fair for everybody and everything involved. Whereas in the past, I could do all the research, I'd find the deals, I'd fund the deals. We've raised over £1 million plus in funding. handle literally from start to finish, project manage the projects whilst dealing with issues along the way. But you can hear and see everything leads back to me. But what the business needs, just because the sheer size and complexity of where it is and the numbers involved, it needs more decisions. There's more decisions to make. They need to be made faster than I can make them myself. And here's the thing. There's bigger consequences across every part of the business. And what I realized is I can't just run this all on my own. Now, you might be thinking, well, there's a solution to that. Bring in more staff. And listen, staff are great. You know, you see Sunil here has Dan helping him with this, the Property Millionaire Zoom and hosting, because obviously he's got a busy day job. But staff is great. But Daniel later on has to leave a bit earlier, so Sunil has to take it over again. That's not to put you under the bus there, Daniel. That's just to highlight one of the points that I'm making. It's staff have got homes to go to, families and lives to live, and they're paid for a job. But they don't have to deal with the consequences. That always comes back to you or me in this instance. So that, although it can help alleviate, the big decisions are still there. They still need to be made. It's not the staff's responsibility. It's not their risk. It's not their reward. So why, frankly, you know, they'll go above and beyond. You'll get that with staff. But ultimately, it's me that's lying awake at night having to figure things out, not them. And what about contractors? Yes, you can bring in specialist contractors, and that helps. But with contractors, there isn't that long-term relationship. It's the nature of being a contractor. I'm a contractor myself as well. When the contract's finished, when the next bigger contract comes along, off they go. So it's not there isn't that relationship. They really care when they're there because they're remunerated well, but when they're not, they're gone. So you lose all that expertise, that knowledge, everything that you've gained, the momentum. At the end of that contract, it's gone. It's leaving the responsibility back with you. Well, what about bringing in advisors? Now, one of the advisors I've brought into the business is Paul Merrick, who's on the call here tonight. And because I've been so busy within the business, I wouldn't have had the capability or the ability to step out and look and see that I was a bottleneck. Because remember, well, I've delivered, you heard me very proud. I've delivered 17 projects. I'm Superman. I can do everything. Clearly not. And it takes someone that you respect. Paul Merrick, he's got 40 years plus in business, 35 years in property. And when someone like that talks, you listen. And after having that long look in the mirror, I didn't want to believe it at first. But he's right. That's why I'm here tonight. But that's the thing. A business consultant advisor, they can advise you, and that's kind of the end of their remit. the responsibility comes back to me. What do I do with that advice? And here I am tonight implementing it. And, we've mentioned earlier on about investors. Investors care about the return. They've got their key metrics they're focused on. They don't want to run a business. One of the reasons why they're giving you that money or that funding is because they want you, for another word, work for them or make that money work harder for them. They're not in the business. They're providing capital for the business. So I can't hand over all these tasks because ultimately the big decisions come back to me. Because at the end of the day, they need my judgment. So for me, bringing in more staff, contractors, advisors, or investors isn't the answer. And a bit more about me. I learn heavily, or I learn through experience. So I'll make a decision and see what happens and adjust along the way. So my natural question tends to be, and has been for the past 5, 6 years, is how do I figure this out? Who do I need to speak to? Who do I need to bring in? Who can I get to help, or who do I need to pay to help me move this on? And that served me well. The business wouldn't have got to where it's got to if I didn't have those capabilities and was prepared to push myself. But what it also means is that whenever the business needs more, my first instinct is to try and find more inside of me. So I'll work longer, reorganize things, or I'll tell myself, I'll get to that once it's done, or once I've cleared this problem. And the danger with that is I can keep on solving immediate problems without stepping back and asking whether how the business is running, does this make sense? So I'll give you an example today. I've got the presentation to do tonight. I'm here presenting to you at, but I've also got a day job. And I've also got a family. And I've also got a business to run. So where does this presentation fit into all of that? Well, I try and fit it into the cracks and the crannies. And I'm not happy with the presentation, but this is the best I could do with the time that I had. And that's not really a way to run a business, is it? Trying to do the best that you can with what little that you've got. And that's quite a hard question to look at and face about yourself. But if you, in my opinion, the quality of your business will be, or the quality of your life is directly linked to the questions that you ask yourself. And I've just realized I'm saying in my opinion, but actually that's something that Paul Merrick has said to me. So working longer, trying to fit everything in, naturally makes me lean towards things that are immediate, things that are shouting, things that are screaming. Because I don't have the time to stop and go, is this what needs to be solved right now? And also, as I said to you, thinking of myself like a Superman, the question that comes up is, just because I can solve something, does that mean I should be the one solving it? And that's where having the ability to solve problems can trap you in that problem. You know, I think I can, yeah, I think I know how to do this, or I know how to do this, so I'll just do it. It'd be quicker if I just did it. So I built the business by being prepared to carry a great deal myself. And that was right for the stages that we were in. And that's what's helped us complete the 17 successful projects. But the business has changed. The opportunities become larger, the decisions have become more significant, and my time now is involved in every decision. Now, I could continue taking the business forward alone, but I know I can't take it as far or as quickly as I can go with the right person beside me. Because the types of projects that we're doing, like the last one, or the one that we're doing just now, with his projected profit of 400,000, we're on track to becoming a multi-million pound business, property business. And you don't get there by having a part-time attitude or a part-time owner. So this is where you come in. And I'm not looking for another me. It's actually a different we. Because the person that comes in needs to be complementary, think differently, and make different decisions than I would. And that's very important, because the natural instinct would be to go, do you know what? Let's just bring another Arshad into the business. Well, we end up making the same decisions. We'll end up getting in each other's feet. That will defeat the point of what we're trying to do here and what I'm looking for. Because if that person's also got a full-time job, are we just going to create another issue? So what does growth actually need? Now, more money? That's helpful and useful, but it doesn't take care of the responsibilities. Bringing more people in doesn't deal with the judgment aspect. But bringing someone to share the responsibilities with, that's where the key lies in going forward. So it's not just better people, better system, more money. It's the decision making and the person that's making the decisions. And what I'm looking for to make that better we, because actually, I want to go back a couple of slides, because I want to talk a bit more about a different we. Because I think the point that's missing here is the person that's coming into the business isn't coming in to my business. When they become a business partner of mine, this will be our business. Where they're, when we making decisions that I might not necessarily agree with, But that's not the point, because it's going to be like a relationship, like a marriage, if you were. And that's an important thing to highlight, that where I want to take the business, that's is not my business anymore once the business partner comes in or business partners come in. It's our business where we will be making the decisions. And some I'll agree with, some I'll disagree. But what's the point in having the other person in the business if they're just coming in to do what I want them to do? Because then we get back to that bottleneck of it'll always be my judgment. And that's what we're trying to get away from. So that's a very important distinction to make about the we. It'll be our business. It'll be two of us lying awake at night thinking about it, or three of us or more than just me. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for someone that can lead, because that's an important part of moving the business forward and taking it forward. Because without leadership, then it's not going to really push ahead. And the type of projects that we're doing is commercial to commercial development. So that isn't something that's ubiquitous. It's quite bespoke. So it's the right people around the table, and the right people need to be interested in where the business is going, not just the next project. So it's having that ability, vision, and care to see into the horizon, but also steer the ship towards that. And part of that is making decisions. Now, I haven't been able to give the full time of dedication to be able to make the decisions, and the decisions come thick and fast at this level. So it's someone that's comfortable making a decision. And here's the thing, I make decisions and I've got it wrong. And they'll make decisions and they'll get it wrong. And that's okay, as long as the decisions that we make, we get more right than we get wrong. Because one of the things about being a spreadsheet guy as an actuary is there's a lot of focus in getting the right number. And you can spend a lot of time in precision and getting all the facts and figures. And really what that is fear. It's fear of getting it wrong. I want to have 100%, or I can blame this or blame that. But really what we're saying, or what I hear, is I wasn't comfortable enough to make a decision where I could stand on my own 2 feet and say I made that decision. So when I say decisive, I don't mean get it right all the time. What I mean is get it right more than you get it wrong. And so I'm a sort of analytical, structured, kind of can get lost in the detail. Want to understand the numbers. So I come across as a bit robotic, you know, what do the numbers say? And I can lose a bit of the human side or the human element of it. So maybe it's time to bring in the human side into the business. Because I can eat spreadsheets and numbers and in my sleep. Whereas when it comes to the more human side of the business, that is definitely where I need help. And the thing is, if I bring another robot in and you've already got a robot, it's not going to work, is it? It'd be like getting the two AI models just trying to do everything together. And when I talk about challenge, it's in a couple of ways because what we're doing is going to be challenging. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worthwhile, would it? But the person has to be comfortable with me challenging them. And by challenging, what I mean is really help me understand your thinking. Now, I might never understand their thinking because that's how they think. But what I'm really trying to do is understand the other person. That's what the challenge is about. And I'm also happy to be challenged. Remember, as I said, it's not my business, it's our business. So I'm expecting them to ask me questions. Why are you doing that? Why are we doing that? Because the whole point of bringing in another mind is I've been doing things the way I do them because that's the way I do them because of who I am and how I think and how I work. Whereas if you bring in a business partner, they've got a different way of working, different way of thinking. And they'll probably turn around and go, why are you doing it that way? I'm like, oh, because of, that's how I've always done it. And goes, well, let's do it this way. And for me, I'm open to trying, going, let's go. Let's do it that way. The other part of what I'm looking for is someone to prioritize the business and the direction that we're going. So this isn't really someone that wants to come in part-time. It wouldn't really suit them. What I'm really saying in a nutshell is someone that wants to come in and own the business. That's a lot less of a robot than me. And it isn't for everybody, and I get that. So just because they've got money, now money is important, but it's not just anyone with money. And it's not for people who treat it as a side hustle or see they like property. Or someone that wants to come along and go, right, what do I do next, Arshad? Because my answer will be, well, what needs done? So it's someone who can genuinely see themselves building beside me. Someone who brings strengths that I don't have. Someone that is not like me. And someone that's willing to take ownership because that's what they want to do. Because that's where they feel comfortable. That's what they like driving. And most importantly, they're excited about where the business is going. Because I don't know if any of you in the audience where you've done a job where you've done it for the paycheck and you've seen your level of commitment, what you do, what you're prepared to do, or where you've done something that you're passionate about, where it consumes you, where you lose track of the time. You don't know where the time's gone. And I think another important aspect of a business partner is I've been carrying this business alone by myself for the past 6 years. And when they say property can be lonely, well, it is because all the decisions and everything comes resting on me. So that's the lonely part. But how good would it be to have someone who wants to share in the risks, because there are risks involved in running a business, but then we can also share in the reward. And that'd be something to hold on to. So I've spent, the last sort of 45 minutes or so talking about what I'm looking for. What I'm going to do over the next couple of minutes is explain, why you should become my business partner. So we've delivered 17 successful projects, ranging from various levels of complexity, from, simple paint refurb jobs to back to brick. Profits on the last project is circa 150k. So that's the kind of level that I've managed to get to by myself, shall we say. We've raised £1 million plus in funding as well. But what we're doing now, what we've got underway, one of the projects just now, is a commercial to commercial development. Projected profit 400,000. And that's the direction that we're moving on. So really, there's an existing business that's been running successfully, has got projects underway just now that are profitable, and the direction that we're going in is very unique. So there isn't as much competition. So that's why I think you should become my business partner. So I'll leave my contact details up here that people can contact me. But I'm happy to take some questions from people in the room.
Arshad, thank you so much for presenting and showing us what you've been doing, and giving us what you're looking for and where you're aiming to get to. So if there are any questions, please raise your hand, or so I can come to you. There's a lot of information there in a very short amount of time, but yeah, we've got time for questions. If anybody wants to come in with questions, happy to do that. Yeah, Trish, if you'd like to unmute, and please feel free.
Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you.
Hi, Arshad. Great presentation. Firstly, well done. It's what you've already achieved is fantastic, and I think it's good to recognise that it's a really big achievement. Moving on from that, you've done so well already on your own, and you've already built a great business. If you're bringing someone else in now, are you going to be sharing all your profit with them? Why would you want to do that?
Thank you, Trish. Good to see you tonight. So I can see why that question's on your mind, because a lot of the times especially when you're working by yourself, what you're thinking is, right, I'll do everything because I can do everything. And if I do everything, then I get to keep all the profit. But the issue that I've got just now is the property business is at a scale and size where I can't work it alone myself. At the same time, I've got, I work as an actuary, so I've got commitments there, which I'm not going to walk away because I'm committed to it. But there's also a lucrative contracts in there as well. So having these two, I suppose, it's a dilemma, isn't it? Having been, I suppose, as fortunate to be in this position, I find that if I'm too greedy, one or the other or both will suffer. if I'm trying to hold on to both. And I'm starting to see that if I don't bring someone else in, that this will be actually detrimental to the business. So it's not about sharing and giving away profit. It's about where the business is going to go, because bringing in the right people into the business, this is going to be a multi-million pound property business. I've no doubt of that. But we can get there quicker, faster with the right people in the business, especially at this sort of crucial time where I'm committed elsewhere as well. So, and then the other part of it is it has been a long, lonely road. And it's time to make the journey a lot more enjoyable, I think, as well. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Fish. Great question. Excellent, an excellent answer as well. Any other questions? Please raise your hand or just unmute and get our attention, and then we can ask the question. Luke, good evening. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you. Thanks for the chat, the presentation there, Arshad. You did a great job. I'm curious on a couple of things. First of all, in terms of your partner, what kind of does that look like in terms of the equity split of your business? Because obviously, as you say, you've been running this 6 years, and obviously a partner's going to join the business. And are you clear now in your mind what your knowledge and skills gaps are that you would want your partner to fill? That those gaps that you want to fill to kind of address that balance, if that makes sense?
Yeah, good evening, Luke. Great questions there. So, talking about the knowledge gaps and the skill gaps. So I've got a good understanding of who I am, but the person coming into the business, I don't actually have a clear picture of who that is. And that's deliberate, because what end up happening is I'd end up putting my biases onto it, and I'd end up thinking about how I think. So for instance, I'll give you an example. So I'm very much an experienced learner. I'll do something, and once I've done it, I will improve it and get better at it. But if I bring someone into the business that thinks from first principles, builds up, a bit like from the ground up, I won't actually understand them. But just the sheer fact of having that difference is what would be attractive about that person. So I'm not looking for someone that can replicate what I do. But the other part is open, because there's so much I can't do that when the people come across that want to be business partners, I'm open-minded in that. And the other aspect is I've also got a business consultant that that's actually helped me become a lot more open-minded, because I think one of the things that Trish pointed out is, why are you giving this all away? And I think that's why I held on for so long myself. So it's actually about expanding my mind, which then expands the opportunity, and that's where growth actually comes. And when you're talking about equity splits and stuff like that, that all comes a lot later on. Those kind of conversations happen a lot further down the line. At first, it's just about, let's have a conversation to see if there's a conversation to have. That's where I suppose my contact details are up there. And I don't know, Sunil, if you've shared them in the chat, that'd be appreciated too. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
Luke, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's perfect. It makes complete sense. I mean, I wasn't asking necessarily expecting that you would say this is like you say, you have the conversations, you're not going to tell everything here, but yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Luke, for the question. Thanks for joining us. Anybody other questions that we can cover? we've had a great couple of questions that gave Arshad an opportunity. Paul?
Not, excuse me, not really a question, more a comment. I've had business partners since I first started my first business when I was 15. And I read something when I was very young. And I think it took me till I was quite old to really understand what I'd read. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And because I've had business partners my whole life, and I don't know how many people in this room have, what I've learned is exactly what Arshad is saying, which is, I'm very good at some things. I think Arshad would testify to that. I think Sunil would testify to that. There's 2 or 3 people in this room that I recognise that know me that would testify I'm very good at some things. And I'm bloody awful at some other things. How many people can say that? How many people can actually openly put their hand up and say, I'm bloody awful at some things? Because I don't think many people like saying that. But there's some things I'm bloody awful at. And what I did when I first started in business, and what I've done my whole life, is I found people who are really good at the things I'm bloody awful at. And ideally, I'm really good at the things they're bloody awful at. And something really special happens when you find the right people and you build a business. And I'm very lucky. I started in property with £40,000 and now own a multi-million-pound debt-free portfolio. I own that because I've had good partners, and I have good partners. Because somehow or another, when you put 2 really good people together, you get more than the sum of the parts. You don't get doubly as good. You get more than that. So I am Arshad's business consultant, have been for some time. I have watched him grow from nothing, from his first property at £70,000 just a few years ago, to now projects that are going to be over £1 million with almost £500,000 profit. And he's very good at what he does, but he's very bad at the things he doesn't do. And I know, having watched him for a couple of years now, that if he had that other balance, the yin to his yang, this would already be a business, because he's got a nice business model. This would already be a business probably worth 20, 25 million. And I've had a real struggle working with Arshad, as I do many times with people when I suggest business partners, because they see what they're giving away, but they can't see what they're getting. And to finish with a story, many years ago, a friend of mine says, I don't know why you give so much money to your business partner, Paul. You could do all of this on your own. And I said, I'll tell you why. Because 50% of £1 million is better than 100% of £100,000. And you know, I've watched you, and you're struggling to make £100,000, and we've made millions. So I'm much happier with 50% of £1 million than I am 100% of £100,000. It was just what I wanted to share.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paul, for sharing. And I think on that note, we will close the room, because it leaves people with, sort of working together, going further, having a bigger slice of the pie, etc. It's all there. So Arshad, thank you so much. Bibi, you've just asked a question about this. I think the summary is, does your business partner have to be equivalent to you, Arshad? So if you just want to cover that quickly, in a similar financial net worth.
No, so with regards to the business partners, it's the most important is coming into the business. They do need to bring money into the business, but these are all kind of questions that we can have as, further down the line. But first of all, we need to know if there is, let's have a conversation about the conversation, because it's important to bring capital into the business and also the skills, but there isn't set amount.
Brilliant. Thank you, Arshad. Yeah, it's got the thumbs up there, explained what your thought process was. So thank you. If you missed the presentation, then please contact Arshad. Maybe he'll go through if you want a conversation with him, again, contact him, and then you can get into much more detail. Maybe, you know, it's more difficult when it's an open forum. It may be more specific to have that conversation, how things are going to work out between you. What skill, as Luke says, you know, what skill sets are both parties looking for. I went to a networking meeting, mastermind meeting once, and a guy called Brian there was 10 people on the table. Guy called Brian across the table says, I'm looking for a business partner. And very much like Luke, people said, yeah, but what are you looking for? He said, I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a business partner. And I think he'd learned somewhere along the line that having a business partner was a good idea. So was he looking for the money? Was he looking for companionship? As he was lonely, is in property can be lonely. What was he actually looking for? So I think that's a really good thing as well, knowing what you're looking for so that you can get a match with Arshad or anybody else that you're working with, because the skill sets must be complementary in some ways, different, because otherwise, as Paul has just indicated, you know, he knows what he's good at, and then he gets somebody else to do the other bit, so that you're both in flow of where you are. And I think that's the message that, you know, I'll leave with, that you need to be in flow with what you're good at, and if you're not good at it, you're not going to be in flow, so let somebody else do that, and they'll love doing the stuff that you're not good at. Arshad's very good at doing spreadsheets. Maybe you're not good at doing spreadsheets, but maybe you're better with managing people. So, you know, you do need different skills within the business as there. But yeah, again, thank you, Arshad, for joining us this evening. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for your question, Luke, again. And if you need anything, please reach out to me. And Arshad, if you need his details, they're on the screen. And yeah, we'll be back in the room first week of September, which is the first Wednesday, and then we're back on Zoom on the third Wednesday. So again, if you need anything, we're all here to help. So thank you very much for this evening. Arshad, thank you, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Great job.